Hello and welcome. I'm standing in front of Ferndale's newly completed parking structure. The structure was built at a cost of over $43,800 per space. Royal Oak built their latest structure at a cost of $28,900 per space. Please join me for the next few minutes as I give a visual explanation of why Ferndale's structure cost so much and how senior members of the Ferndale City Council wasted $7.5 million on a failed vanity project. If you're a Ferndale taxpayer or resident, you don't want to miss this. This is the Royal Oak parking structure at 11 in Main that opened in June of 2019. It's a reasonably attractive structure as far as these things go. And notably, the walls are actually made up of concrete and brick and limestone. Unlike Ferndale's obviously cheap and extraordinarily ugly exterior, which features cinder block and a material that would appear to be more appropriate for a cheese grater than the exterior of a building. The Royal Oak structure's 581 spaces were built at a cost of $16.8 million, which adds up to $28,900 per space. The Ferndale structure cost over $22 million for 377 spaces, but there were extras that the Royal Oak project didn't have. The streetscape out front cost $2 million, and the rough shell of the retail space cost $1.5 million. And there's also the fourth floor transfer pad, which cost $2 million. More about that later. So the cost for just the parking structure itself, without the extras, is $16.5 million. Do the math, that still comes out to $43,800 per space. So why is Ferndale's parking structure so expensive? So I'm here in the Royal Oak structure, and I want to show you the main reason why the Royal Oak parking structure was so much cheaper to build than the one in Ferndale. If you look here, you can see that the structure was put together in precast sections. These precast sections were made at a factory. Virtually everything in this parking structure was precast and trucked onto the site. This is how virtually all parking structures are made today. By using these precast elements, the structure was able to be built at approximately 2/3 of the cost and in 2/3 of the time of the type of structure Ferndale has. Because Ferndale has a poured concrete structure, the entire structure was formed and poured on site. You can see the form marks everywhere. So the question is, why did Ferndale choose to go with a construction method that would cost 1/3 more and take 1/3 more time as the precast? For the answer to that, we'll have to take a trip to the 4th floor. Behind the fence and the warning signs is a $2 million transfer pad I mentioned earlier. The City Council plan was that a 2-story, 20,000 square foot office building would be built on this space. That hole over there with the cover on it, that's where the elevators was going to be. What does this have to do with expensive poured concrete construction? It turns out that engineering-wise, you can't build a building on top of a cast concrete built structure. It has to be built upon the more expensive poured version. So in essence, what the city did was spend an additional $5.5 million to build the entire structure out of expensive poured concrete so that they could cover a little over 1/4 of the structure with office space. Absolutely insane. Add the $2 million for the transfer floor, and you get a cost of $7.5 million to produce a chunk of real estate about the size of 2 average Ferndale residential lots. And how much is this bit of created real estate worth? Because of the decade-long glut in the office space market, the space is literally worthless for its intended use. Any office building that you build up here would be worth less than the cost of construction. And what of the office building that was supposed to be built on this expensive piece of real estate? The financing fell through, and the real estate giveaway the city used as an incentive to get the deal through is being used elsewhere. Currently, the city has no feasible plans for utilizing this space. $7.5 million for nothing. So who is responsible for this boondoggle? Why did it happen? And what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? Follow me. I've heard it said more than once that the only ones who really wanted this mixed-use parking structure were members of the city council. The business community and nearby residents made their voice clear when in March of 2017 they packed council chambers asking for a single-use structure. A petition signed by 45 business owners asking for just a regular single-use parking structure was presented. So why did Mayor Piena, Councilperson Palika, and Councilperson Leeks May vote to authorize this huge waste of taxpayer dollars? At the time, Council said that this was about office jobs downtown. But if this were really the case, the $7.5 million could have been used to far better effect with tax breaks and other market-based incentives. I think a look at artist renditions of what the place was supposed to look like with the office building on top gives us a better idea of what this was about. Look at how tall. Look how shiny. Look how it totally does not fit in at all with any of the surrounding neighborhoods. It screams, "Look at me." Make no mistake, the idea of an office building looming high over Troy Street was never anything but an expression of the vanity of Ferndale City Council. The idea of being the first city in Michigan to produce a mixed-use structure of the kind they produced was too heady to be ignored. $7.5 million wasted. What can you do to stop it happening again? First off, share this video and like and follow my Facebook page. There are more posts there about the City Council's excesses and issues. You can also tell your friends outside of Facebook what you've seen today. But the most important thing you can do is vote in this upcoming November's municipal election.